Hello there, one and all, and welcome to episode 422 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, live on YouTube as always. And it is the final episode of the year, the final broadcast of the year, which means, as tradition demands, that it is my rundown of the top 10 best perfumes of the year, top 10 best perfumes of 2023 as selected by yours truly. But we need to see what the comments are because there are lots of comments that have come through already. Ty says hello. Power Connection is here as well saying hi. Bart says hi from Belgium. Milad says good evening from Muscat. You're all very, very welcome. Power Connection says wearing vintage Durissimo to make me happy on this cloudy, rainy, sleety day. You smell absolutely heavenly. David is saying good afternoon from Amsterdam. Who else is here? Jagoda says pozdrowienia z Warszawy. You're very, very welcome. Really good to see somebody from Warsaw here. Morning from Portland says Eris. Ty says my scent of the day is Tuberose Organique by The Zoo. Natasha is very excited to be here. Angeline says lovely flowers and shirt. Well, we need to kind of get into the sort of New Year's Eve mode, don't we? Milu says, my first time live, so happy. I love your work so much. That is very, very, very kind. And this is a good episode to do as a first one live. So many of you here, please keep the comments coming and the questions as well. Before we go through the perfumes, and I promise we will devote an appropriate amount of time to all of them, as this is the final video of the year, there are a few things that I need to say. There will be, as always, a corresponding blog post on persolaise.com to go with this video, and I will put a link. It's not live yet, so don't go looking on persolaise.com just yet, because there is nothing for you to see. But probably a few minutes after this video ends, I will make that blog post go live, and then I will add a little link to it in the video description here. So please do check it out, because I've sort of gone into a little bit more depth into what I think some of the main trends have been over the course of this year. Ooh, big blue banner on the thing. Rich Mitch, scent of the night, the night, getting filthy looks. This is very, very kind of you, Rich. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for all of your support and encouragement over the course of the year. And don't mind those filthy looks. You smell amazing. I love the night. So yes, make sure you check out the blog post. And in case there's a sort of bit of a crazy rush at the end of the video, I'm going to say all of my thank yous now. So thank you to all of you. A very, very, very sincere, heartfelt, genuine thank you to every single one of you who has either sent in a comment or a question or just some kind of word of encouragement over the course of the year, or indeed done the things, you know, like a super chat, or bought me a coffee, or contributed to the site, you know, donated something to the work in some way. I genuinely appreciate every single gesture of support like that, and also the fact that we do seem to have built this very, very caring, I think, and supportive and encouraging group here of very knowledgeable and passionate people. We don't always agree on the perfumes, but we don't have to agree. And I think we've made it very, very clear that as long as we keep things respectful and polite, it's absolutely fine to disagree. And you know, a lot of that is down to you. It is down to the sorts of folks that you are, tuning in, watching so conscientiously, religiously, week after week, sending the comments coming, sending the questions coming, sometimes even sending samples coming my way. I'm grateful to all of that, and I absolutely wouldn't be able to do it if it weren't for your support. I would have stopped quite some time ago. Where we go with the site and the YouTube channel in 2024 remains to be seen. I think it's going to be an interesting year. I think things in the world of blogging, of YouTubing are becoming, I wouldn't say necessarily worrisome, but certainly I think things are changing. I have no intention of bringing about any major changes to the way that I do things, but some kind of minor changes may be inevitable, but we won't worry about that. And the reason to bring that up is that if you particularly have any thoughts or any bright ideas about certain directions that the blog could go in or the YouTube channel could go in, I would be very, very, very interested to hear from you, because invariably a lot of you know a lot more about those sorts of things than I do. But I can't talk and look at the comments at the same time. So what are people saying? Thank you, England, for Rich Mitch, says Dusan. Milard says, hopefully in 2024 there'll be a tolerable creed. Love the community here, says Sharon. Rachel says, we're all Mr. P fans, or we were all Mr. P fans. Rachel, what has happened to cause you to use the past tense? Christine says, Christine, you're not well, are you? Okay, well, sending you very, very, very good wishes. You will be fine. Don't worry, you will be absolutely fine. Natasha says, I would love to read more of your mini reviews. I miss the skin sense time on the blog, says Esumar. Save those sorts of comments, maybe send them as a direct message to me or send them in an email, because I won't be able to pay attention to those comments now. And I do have to also devote a minute or so to saying a very, very special thank you to you-know-who, the long-suffering Madame Persolaise. Not that she's going to watch this video, but I can thank her in person for all of the things that she does in the background that enable me to put aside the time to be able to do this kind of stuff with you. I am genuinely grateful to her as well. And Eris, that's very, very kind, says, 2023 has been a year without much vitality for me. I'm sorry to read that, but your fragrance reviews have brought me so much energy and excitement. Well, at least that's something. Thank you for your considered and passionate perfume criticism. And thank you very much for that. That's really, really generous. Very, very sweet. Jeff says, I'm hoping to see Tutti Twili here, one of my absolute favorites from this year. I quite like that one as well. Okay, we need to start. Enough of a preamble, because we have got 10 perfumes to get through. I haven't really put them in any particular order. I think I know which one I'll finish with, and I've decided that I know which one I'm going to start with, but we need to get going. Final thought before we start. I would love to know what your favorites of the year have been. I suspect some of them are here on the table next to me, but a lot of them may not be. I do really genuinely want to know what some of your favorites are, because it prompts me to go and seek out the ones that I've never smelt. So take a moment. It doesn't have to be right now. It could be after we finish the video, but take a moment to present me with your own sort of little top 5 or top 10 list. I think we need to get going. Rachel, you don't need to be embarrassed by the time, but if you're going to have a typo, that was a good typo, isn't it? That was the a good note to leave it on. We were all your fans. Bye. See you next year. Rachel, you didn't need to do that. Thank you very, very much. That's very, very kind. Okay, let's start. Right, the first one, I'm guessing a lot of you, as most of you are regular viewers, and if you're not regular viewers, you need to become regular viewers. You kind of probably can guess what a lot of these are. Anyway, here we go. From the brand Akro, this is, of course, Bake, composed by Olivier Cresp, who has done all of the scents for this brand, because it's his brand. It's the brand that he set up with his daughter, and this was just such great fun. It was one of 3 Akro scents that we had this year, but this was definitely my favorite. And Dusan says, if you are macro, buy this Akro. Okay. This one, for the few of you out there who may not be aware, this is Cresp going back into gourmand territory. And he, of course, is famously the perfumer behind Angel, and a few other gourmand scents, including another very good one from this year, Dolce & Gabbana's Devotion, not in the top 10 list. But the gourmand sensibility that we're being presented with in Bake is a kind of lemon cake, or to my nose, more of a lemon meringue tart. And it is insanely and gorgeously and delectably hyper real, photo real. It is, if I were to close my eyes now, I'm just imagining the retired and much missed Monsieur Christian Cottard of Antibes, the sort of renowned pastry chef of Antibes, presenting me with his famous lemon meringue tart. The filling is there. There's a serving of chantilly on the side. You can taste the butteriness of the pastry. You can see that vivid, intense yellow color of the filling. It's just magical. But because it's Olivier Crespe, he knows that he can't just present a kind of olfactory version of a dessert in a bottle and leave it at that. He also needs to give some thought to how this stuff is going to connect with the wearer's skin. That is why he is so good at gourmands, because he never forgets that they're meant to be worn. They're not just meant to, cause you to salivate. And through some clever combination of vanilla and woods, he has done that here, because this is also wonderfully wearable. Oh, power connection. Thank you very much. I need to watch out for these sort of banners coming up. What does it say? Thanks for being you. Oh, that's very, very sweet. Thank you. An increasingly visually impaired, because I kind of had to go like this. I'm going to have to start. I think that's going to be one of the changes. I'm probably going to have to start wearing reading glasses in 2024. But yes, what was I saying? The bake is just great fun. Yeah, sorry, I really remember what I was going to say. Apparently, some people were put off wearing it on skin because they thought they didn't want to smell like a lemon drizzle cake or a lemon meringue tart. But you don't when you wear it. It is a bona fide, legitimate perfume. I think so anyway. That's why it's on the list. Rena says, Bake is my favorite release of the year. Fantastic. Polish Cheap Car says he's a poet and doesn't even know it. Who's this now? Dushan is in the mood for rhyming. Why? What's he done? I need to scroll up and find out what he's done. What has he said? What has he said? I enjoy dark from... No. Or was it the macro acro thing? Okay, probably the macro acro. Maudlin says, of all desserts, it would be lemon drizzle I would want to smell like. Right? Because you've got the citrus and the tart quality and then the sweetness. Absolutely. Mr. Raspopitol, oh, there's a name I haven't seen for a while, says, hello, also happy to be able to make it to the live. I'm very, very pleased that you're here as well. Rachel says it's really difficult to narrow things down to a top 10. I couldn't agree with you more, but we'll talk about that after we've done 5, because I want to talk about the process of narrowing things down to 10. And Thomas says, Bake is my favorite in the entire range. There we go. Praise indeed. Okay, what have we got next? Next, let's go to what is... let's do this one, because I've already teased with this one, haven't I? This is probably the quietest release in the top 10. Composed by Monsieur Fabrice Pellegrin from Diptyque. This is L'Eau Papier, which seems to have been popping up on quite a few top 10 lists. And Fabrice Pellegrin is doing well with Diptyque, isn't he? Because I put his Opsis on last year's list. Let's have a spray. This is a fairly divisive one, though, I think, even though it has appeared on a few people's top 10s. It's also generated fairly, or elicited fairly indifferent feelings from some, but that's quite often a good sign. Divisiveness is a good sign. See, I just really, and I'd love to hear from you as well about... Oh, Cat C says, no way, finally sniffed this 1 hour ago in Harrods. Now, was Harrods absolute bedlam? I almost daren't ask. I'm guessing you mean the Diptyque. So, Fabrice Pellegrin, one of the most talented perfumers of our times, without any question. Always very, very interesting to see what he does. And it's quite pleasing to see that he's... I mean, he isn't sort of officially, technically, the in-house perfumer at Diptyque, but he does seem to have done a lot of their recent work. And I think that kind of gentleness of touch and that injection of tenderness that he puts into a lot of his work works quite well with that slightly kind of pared back Diptyque aesthetic. Rachel says this one is a low-key winner. Yes, it has an easy elegance in a group of really boldly constructed fragrances. I'd agree, and I would imagine it took some doing to make this as convincing as it is, or maybe not. Maybe with his experience and his talent, Pellegrin was able to put it together quite quickly, but that's probably because he is so experienced. Now, don't smell it or get it hoping to get a perfume that is the smell of paper, and certainly don't get it hoping for a perfume that is going to be like the smell of ink, because it certainly isn't inky. But when it comes to the paper, it's more like a kind of abstract, metaphorical sort of rendition or evocation of paper, and also the texture of paper. This is very, very quiet. This does sit very, very close to the skin. It's very subtle, and yet its texture and its color are unmistakable. There's something that Pellegrin has done here with the use of a mimosa note, supposedly roasted sesame as well. I don't kind of get that per se, but I get something sort of roasted and nutty. Definitely a lot of isoe super type cedary woods, very, very, very gently, well judged musks. And you get a sense of whiteness, which is kind of going to be interesting for something else on the list. You get a sense of whiteness, you get a sense of gentleness, you get a sense of rubbing your fingers over just very, very gently, finely grained paper. Oh, Diptyque, thank you very much. That was good timing. Pause in my very, very kind. I've waited the last 2 months for this live, so I can treat myself to at least one of your top 10s of the year. Happy 2024 to all Persolaisers. Oh my goodness. Is that going to be a new noun? I'm not going to try to. What would a perzacolite? No. Anyway, Diptyque, that's very, very sweet. Thank you. The perfect word for this scent, says Lindsay, is crisp. Yeah, I think I would go along with that to a certain extent, but maybe I read it as being a bit softer than you do then. Because, yeah, there is a crispness to it, but to me, I respond more to the gentle quality that it displays. Anyway, that's the second one on the list, which means we need to get going. So third, by the way, these are not in any particular order. I should stress that. Third. Where shall we go with the third? Okay, let's do this one. So third on the list from earlier this year is another addition to Barbara Herrmann's brand, Eris, and this is Delta of Venus, composed by Antoine Lee, as have been all of the scents from Eris so far. Barbara Herrmann, of course, is the author of this book here, Scent and Subversion. She very kindly gave up some time to do an interview on this channel a little while ago, so if you search for Persolaise Barbara Herrmann interview, you should be able to find it. And if all goes according to plan, both she and Antoine Lee will be back on this channel for a kind of joint interview where we will be talking mainly about Delta Venus, but also about their work together. That should be very, very soon. I will reveal the date a little bit closer to the time, but the idea is for it to be in January. So stay tuned to social media. Gender Goblin says, I love her Scorpio rising. Yes, I remember being impressed with that one as well. Love this fragrance, says Rachel. Good. I'm really, really pleased. This one, I think, has cropped up on some lists as well. S. Umar says, as much as I tried to love Delta Venus, I could not. I was not able to get past the sulfurous cat pee note. Interesting. Okay, why is this one on the list? So let's have a re-sniff. Right. You get, at least to me, I mean, I've never been a cat owner, so the cat pee association is perhaps not one that I would have made straight away. Sulfurous, maybe. So think of something that might remind you of matches being struck, something like that. But to me, that's faint. So maybe you're hyperosmic to it. But what you mostly get is, in inverted commas, an exotic fruit note. So something like guava, and I think guava is what they were going for. Maybe the kind of fleshiness, the texture of papaya, maybe even something that's going into the territory of a kind of tart, not yet quite fully ripe mango, that kind of thing. Now, that can very often in perfumery, and especially in mainstream perfumery, that it can be the sort of thing that can be a recipe for disaster, because it can be really sickly sweet. It can also be woefully unconvincing. You know, that you've got the sales assistant who says, oh, this has a really good mango note, and you're smelling it and you're thinking, I don't think this has ever in any way, shape or form come close to a mango. Not that it would have anyway, because you can't get a natural extract from a mango. You can't get a natural extract from a guava, unless I'm mistaken. So all of this has just been recreated. There are accords using other ingredients that have been recreated through the genius of Monsieur Antoine Lie. A2Z1 says guava does smell like cat pee. Ah, okay. I did not know this. Eric says, I really enjoyed Delta Venus, but I find it quieter than I'd hoped. I wish they could have made an extrait for us. Well, maybe we can ask Barbara and Antoine. So anyway, you've got this guava-ish fruit note. But what's great about it, and what finally, you know, made me decide that I would include it in my top 10, is that it is wholly convincing. You've got all of the elements of the fruit here. So yes, there is sweetness, but it isn't just sweetness. You've got a kind of woody quality to it. You've almost got like maybe a kind of incensey quality, which is also what Jean-Claude Ellena exploited when he made Jardin sur le Nil for Hermès, which was supposed to be a kind of mango note. And the other thing technically as well that is remarkable about this scent is that this fruit note is just so beautifully and so expertly sustained from start to finish. As we get towards the end, you can see certain sandalwood materials appearing. Antoine Lie is very fond of Javanol. I don't know for a fact whether he's used it here. I suspect there is some Javanol in here. But everything is in the service of presenting this fruit note. And then that ties in with the name, because you sort of wonder whether Delta Venus is meant to make us think that this is a, you know, forbidden fruit, a perfume that is meant to be an expression of femininity and the allure of femininity and the danger of femininity and all of those sorts of ideas. It all just works extremely well. And it is just technically and conceptually so impressive, and just shows that Barbara Herrmann has so much to offer to the world of perfumery because of her knowledge of vintage scents. I mean, you know, for goodness sake, she's written a whole book about them, right? Because of her her bravery in going into sort of areas that have the potential to produce some dubious pieces of work, but she goes there. You know, that's one of the things that I want to ask her about when she comes into the studio. Is like, you know, who had the idea to do a kind of guava note, and if the idea was hers, was Antoine Lie's first reaction to say, "Are you kidding me? Do you really want to go there?" You know, with a fruit note. But she did, clearly she did, and she's also gone into somewhat dubious territory in some of the other scents, but she always pulls them off really well. You know, look at Green Spell, which I think probably is still my favorite from her range. Superb green scent. So this is a really interesting take on a fruit note. Sharon says this was a great year for Antoine Lie. Multiple releases that caught my attention. Oh, do tell us which other ones you liked as well. Mia says, speaking of Jardin sur le Nil, today I read the funniest fragrance review where someone said all Hermès scents smell vaginal. Now there's an adjective I was not expecting to see in the live stream today. Thank you for that. Sister Parfum says, L'eau papier was a nah for me, loving too much fleur de peau, next to it. RK Cooperau says, first time live, you're very welcome. Realizing I have to wait as he rolls through the list. Well, yes, sorry, if it's live, you can't just scroll through, right? Because I haven't done the rest of the video yet. Rachel says, Barbara sent Antoine a crate of guava because he had never smelled one before. Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I'll ask her about that as well. S. Umar, is there another Antoine Lie perfume coming up? I'm not revealing anything. Okay, let us move on. We've only done 3. We really need to move on. Now, okay, I think I should do this one as number 5 because of what I will do after that. So what should we do as number 4? Let's do this as number 4. Now, this was a little bit of a controversial one. Let's reveal the scent first of all. So this was this year's city exclusive from Le Labo. So this is Myrrhe 55 or Myrrhe 55. We now apparently can credit it to Daphne Bouget, although I'm not sure if that's officially come from the brand. So if it was not made to Daphne Bouget, apologies, but I believe we can credit it to her. This one, I think it's a great scent, and I think it's one of the best things that Le Labo have done for a while, but this one really seemed to crystallize a discussion that we had lots and lots of times on this channel this year, lots and lots of comments that were made, lots of emails that I received about the issue of perfume prices. 2023 was the year when perfume prices just seemed to really kind of jump several notches ahead. I mean, we expect the prices of everything to increase. Frederic Malle do their annual increase, Chanel do their annual increase, but certain brands just seem to think, well, let's do about 3 or 4 years worth of increases in one go. And the Le Labo city exclusives certainly seemed to jump several notches ahead. There were a few Tom Ford releases whose prices were worryingly high. And it's an issue that we came back to again and again and again. I don't see the prices of anything going down anytime soon. And unfortunately, what happens when one brand decides to increase their prices, the other brands are under pressure to follow suit because they don't want their product to be considered to be inferior. However, on this occasion, I am aware of several brands that have actually thought they're not going to jump on the bandwagon straight away because they don't think it's the right way to go, and they actually just are just going to sit back and watch whether things are going to backfire on the brands that have increased their prices. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. We will talk about the scent in a moment, by the way. It has been a crazy year with prices, says Maudlin. Expensive, but yes, it's actually a pretty good Jasmin. Chypre, says Woozy. Yeah, I'm glad you agree. The price increases are terrible, says Ty. Just bought 40 mils of Eau Noire for £125. I know, yeah, that is a lot of money for 40 mils of scent. In March, it was around 10 to 20 pounds less. Pradeep says Guerlain are going to increase again so that no one can buy. S. Umar says Le Labo prices are insane. Yeah, especially for the city exclusives. But putting that aside, it's easier said than done when you want to buy the scent. But putting that aside, Myrrhe 55, Myrrhe 55, was a really, really well done nouveau chypre. Calls to mind their Ylang 49 from a few years ago. And actually, a side-by-side comparison of the two is interesting because Ylang 49 was more overtly feminine, more overtly Ylang Ylang, kind of softer with the white florals, and it had this really beautiful kind of slinky, seductive feline quality. The Myrrhe 55 also has that kind of patchouli floral chypre thing happening, so that means it's very, very retro, but it also has a kind of streamlined quality that keeps it feeling completely modern. But it is kind of like, I don't like to talk in terms of gender stereotypes, but it is like a sort of masculine counterpart to the femininity of Ylang Ylang, maybe because it uses more resins, balsams in the base, maybe because it comes across as woodier. But it was a fun one to wear. It's kind of sort of assertive, borderline angry. I'm reading the huge fat Madonna biography at the moment. Did you know I'm a Madonna fan? It just suddenly sort of struck me that with Madonna's love of white florals and vintage scents, the Ylang 49 could be her to Sean Penn's Myrrhe 55, because I've just read the chapter about their crazy wedding. It's got that kind of slightly bad boy quality to it, which is fine in a perfume, but maybe not so nice in a person. Bozanova says, watching you two talk is like watching a chess match. Oh, which two? I'm not going to start getting into exchanges then. Myrrhe and Tonka is all you need, says Nick. Dennis says, paying some of these prices just feels wrong, especially once you understand the supply chains, costs, etc. Yeah, well, that's a whole other discussion. And I think because we are at the half-hour mark, we should very, very quickly move on to number 5. And number 5 will also give me an opportunity to talk about something else. In 5th position, one for a brand that I think has actually had a pretty good year. So from Guerlain, speaking of expensive perfumes, from their L'Art et la Matière range, this is Jasmin Bonheur, cheerful, happy, Jasmin, composed by Delphine Jelk and Thierry Vasseur. I was taken with this immediately from first sniff. This also has a kind of retro floral quality to it. But usually scents that are retro tend to kind of hark back to the 50s and the 60s, maybe even earlier. But the retroness of Jasmin Bonheur takes us to the 90s, which is kind of interesting because immediately it called to mind for me scents like Estee Lauder Beautiful. Was that 80s or 90s? But anyway, that kind of thing. When I think it was a kind of moment when florals were still very much under the influence of the kind of grandness of 80s scents, but felt that they needed to become a little bit cleaner. The other Estee Lauder I remember as well that it made me think of is Beyond Paradise. But Beyond Paradise is 21st century, isn't it? Okay, so somewhere between the 80s and the beginning of the 21st century. So they still had the kind of the remnants of the hairspray and the shoulder pads, but they realized that they needed to become cleaner, more streamlined, maybe slightly less abstract, more legible. And Jasmin Bonheur just does that. And also the fact that, you know, Jasmine, beautiful note in perfumery that it is, beautiful flower that it is, we don't often think of it as being an especially happy note or a happy flower. So just the fact that they've called it Jasmin Bonheur, I think, is interesting. And they have found its smile. Both Delphine Jelk and Thierry Vasseur here found the happiness of Jasmine. They found its good humor. They found its sort of smiling radiance. And it's glorious. It really, really, really works. Love this fragrance, says Rachel. Wanted to put this one in my top 10. Ah, see, there you go. It is hard. Is it me or is this just a beefy ombre nuit, says Pradeep. Oh, no, I wouldn't have said that. I mean, I'd have to go away and think about it, but I didn't think that straight away. Jasmin Bonheur is beautiful, says Thomas. It's not retro though; it's French. Okay, that's another debate we can save for another time. Jasmin Bonheur is amazing, says Sebastian. What do you think about the Jasmin Grandiflorum Extrait, both from 2023? Well, those extraits, I've done a whole video on them. Okay. So this is the point where I would also just like to spend a little bit of time talking about the scents that didn't quite make it onto the top 10. And I don't think I've ever done that before, because what was heartening this year, frustrating but heartening, was that it was difficult to choose just 10 perfumes. There have been a few years, and I'm not going to reveal which years there were, where I'd sort of have 6 or 7 perfumes, and then I'd think, oh, well, you know, do I really want to come up with 3 or 4 more and, you know, give them this Persolaise accolade of being the 10 best of the year, which of course I did, but this year was in reverse. So a little bit of a shout out, and this list will also be on the blog. Starting with the Guerlain, as I said, for a brand that releases, you know, about 78,000 perfumes every single month, a lot of them were forgettable, but they did have a good year. And I really have to mention their Aqua Allegoria flanker, their Nerolia Vetiver Harvest, which was just beautiful. Go back to my original video on it, on my original review of it. I really, really wish I'd bought a backup bottle. And also their flanker done by Delphine Jelk of Abbey Rouge. The flanker was called Abbey Rouge Rouge Privé. Just such a beautiful update of Abbey Rouge, mainly because it was so respectful. And that was a perfume for which I did buy a backup bottle because it's a limited edition, and I thought I cannot afford to be without one. I just need to scroll through another window here to see what people are saying. about those two. I'm going to have to read the comments later. Anyway, the other ones that didn't quite make it onto the list. So this is a little bit of a revelation as to what is not going to be in the remaining 5. I had a lot of time for Maison Crivelli's Nerolina Simba, composed by Paul Guerlain, who is a name to watch. I really liked what Geza Schön did for his Harrods exclusive, called H01 for his Eccentric Molecules brand. Fabrice Pellegrin, again, I really liked his work on Diptyque's O Nabati, which was like a kind of update of Dior's Dune. Marc-Antoine Barrois did an extrait of Ganymede, composed by Quentin Biche, which was interesting to say the least. So do check it out if you like the original Ganymede. I liked Fanny Ball's work on Penhaligon's The Omniscient Mr. Thompson, which we haven't reviewed here yet. That may be an early 2024 review, but a curious piece of work. And also I thought Aliénor Massenet's Solaris for Penhaligon's was worth checking out. Florian Gallo's Horn OK Please for Pearson was a really great kind of figgy, woody sandalwood. And Antoine Lee again did an interesting take on a sort of nutty patchouli for Les Indemodables Patchouli Noisette. And Christopher Sheldrake showed that he still got it in his sort of relationship with Serge Lutens when he gave us his Écrin de Fumée earlier this year. And also, as I say in the blog post, I'm going to break one of my rules and mention the brand that I'm not supposed to mention, but I will very, very quickly mention Amouage Search, composed by Alexis Grujon, because if you haven't tried it, you really need to. Okay, am I allowed to do that? And we need to get on with the list. Jill says, come on, people, shout out some likes for the Grand Persolaise. Yes, please, because how many of you are watching? If you're enjoying the video, you need to give it a thumbs up. And did I say thank you for all the... Yes, thank you very much for all the coffees that I've received throughout the year. And if you would like to find out how you can support my work, you should be able to see a link to the coffee, to my coffee page in the video description below. Okay. You really love Search. Any quick words on why, says Woozy. Why do I love Search? Because I just thought it was so surprising, and that juxtaposition between the weird roasted, totally compelling citrus note and then the leatheriness was great. You know, it was one of those, are the two blocks going to meet? Do they work side by side along each other? Is there just a big gap in the middle? And I think it works, and I've really, really enjoyed wearing it. People are raving about Jubilation 40, says Rachel. We need to move on from the Amouage because we've got 5 more perfumes to talk about. Okay. We just mentioned Fabrice Pellegrin. Let's mention him again. What a great year it has been for him. And this is another limited edition. This is one of only 2 perfumes this year for which I bought a backup bottle because I thought I cannot be without this. And also given that it's a tiny bottle. Okay, so this is from the people behind the Nay magazine. This is the range of scents that they do called Nay 1+1. 1+1 because each one is a collaboration between the perfumer and somebody else who's a sort of expert in their field, be it an artist or in this case a chef. The chef was Akrameh Ben Alal, perfumer was Fabrice Pellegrin, of course, and they gave us this scent called Adorem. It is still available. You can still get it. So if you like the sound of it, do check it out. It's just these tiny little 15 ml bottles. Now this is hands down, you can see in my original review of it posted several months ago, this is one of the finest frankincense incense compositions of the century. And you know how in Le Papier he gave us his kind of perfumery olfactory take on whiteness? In Adorem he gives us blackness. It's just like the earth erupting like a fissure in the crust of the planet, and this black lava starts to emerge, smoke and incense. And they also use a special kind of roasted version of the material done by Firmenich called Vulcan incense, or Vulcan. This was, and a lot of people, after I did my original review of this, a lot of people went away and ordered it and agreed with me that they thought it was tremendous. It's just so beautiful. I think there's a kind of touch of a sort of oudiness there. It does feel like the smell of the core of the planet. It's primal. And just the fact that, you know, Pellegrin in 1 year was able to give us these two so wildly contrasting scents was wonderful. Really, really gorgeous piece of work. So make this one a sellout. I've had people complain to me that apparently I caused a certain scent to be sold out because it's another limited edition. Should we do that one next? Actually, you know the one I mean. This was an immediate favorite of mine. I ordered a tiny sample for myself and loved it straight away. Yeah, people are guessing what it is. And then I thought, oh my goodness, it's a limited edition. Are there going to be any bottles left? And then I saw how much it cost, and I thought, ooh, but I thought, no, if I'm going to treat myself to an expensive bottle this year, it has to be this one. This is from Roberto Greco. This is Rauque, composed by the legendary Christopher Sheldrake. I'm told the word it's the French word for horse, as in when your voice goes hoarse. Is Rauque a Derby tribute, says Gavin. You can definitely get more than a whiff of those glorious 80s masculines, you know, those beautifully kind of assertive and yet delicate and polite, broad-shouldered, broad-chested scents like Derby in there, but this has also got a very, very kind of equestrian feel to it. And I think on the blog post, if memory serves, I sort of said that it's almost like a kind of meeting point of Coromandel, which is, of course, a scent that Christopher Sheldrake himself will know a thing or two about, given his work at Chanel, and also the tobacco note of good old classic Habanita, and that kind of impassioned, tempestuous, equine quality of Corpus Equus from Naomi Goodsir, which I think was composed by Bertrand Duchaufour. It's it leaves me speechless, and I'm just so sorry that it's a limited edition, because it's one of the best green tobacco leather scents I've smelt for ages, and it's not loud. Okay, that's what's interesting about it. It's not loud, but it lasts for a long time, and you kind of get a whiff of this carnal, impassioned quality. The word that keeps coming to mind again and again and again is that it feels impassioned, and you can sort of hear the horse's hooves going past. And I'm not a horsey person at all, but you can see the horse's manes flapping about, and you know, as they kind of rush past you, you can see the bodies, you know, the veins in their bodies, and you can feel the kind of sweatiness of the horses. Assuming horses sweat, they must sweat, right? They're mammals, they must sweat. Just beautiful piece of work. Tripty says, this is the one, Rauque, I am the most tempted to hit buy on. Lindsay says, it shows as in stock at Lucky Scent, which is great. If you live somewhere, that Lucky Scent will ship to you. Sandra says, I visited Jevoy on Wednesday and they had only 5 bottles left. And Lindsay says, I was intrigued by it, but decided it wasn't full bottle worthy for me. That's fine. At least you tried it. Oh, Sandra says, it is now out of stock at Jevoy. Gosh. I really like Cuir Velours by Naomi Goodsir, says Thomas. Yeah, that was a good one as well. Rachel says, the scent of horse sweat under the saddle is very addictive. Oh, I need to smell that once. I mean, I've never been on a horse, unless I was on a horse once as a kid. Can't remember. Okay, so that horsey smell, says Dushan, is the soul of Peau d'Espagne by Santa Maria Novella. Ah, interesting. We are down to the last 3. Any guesses, any guesses, any guesses? Okay, let's do this one. This was a fairly recent review on the Persolaise channel, so this one kind of like nudged in there, but as soon as I smelt it, I thought, oh, this is a special piece of work. We may have to consider a top 10 spot for this one. This is from the Carine Roitfeld brand. It's called Forgive Me, composed by the legendary, you know, equally legendary as Christopher Sheldrake. In this case, it's Monsieur Dominique Ropion. And I was just so impressed with this. It has that kind of retro-esque cheap quality that we get from Myrrhe 55. But it takes things in a different kind of direction because it's much more sort of tuberosy. And after having worn it a few times and sort of smelt it and thought about it, I think I decided that it's almost as though Ropion decided to take his basic idea for Mugler Alien, which is a kind of big white floral, in that case jasmine, make it feel quite strange and otherworldly and grand, and put it on a huge dose of the musk cashmeran, which I was smelling all over the house today because I was burning the Ostens cashmeran candle, beautiful candle by the way. So this has also got a lot of cashmeran, it's got a lot of patchouli, but instead of the jasmine, we've got tuberose. And it gives this really intriguing, unworkoutable, super compelling kind of Jekyll and Hyde quality. And I think the way I described it in the blog post, which will be going live soon, is that it's kind of like looking for forgiveness, looking for absolution, even whilst looking for the next opportunity to sin. There is a very kind of seductive wickedness to it. And I wasn't sure, because it's got a green quality to it as well, and I wasn't sure what Madame Persolaise would make of it, because she's not a fan of green scents, but she smelled this and immediately her take was, that's interesting, there's something different going on here. I think there are lots and lots of depths to it, and it is, without any question, the best Carine Roitfeld I've ever smelled. So thank you, Monsieur Ropion, for giving us this one. Two to go. Let's make room for the final two. Now, one is one that a lot of you, I think, have guessed, have worked out. I was pretty sure as soon as I smelt it that it would, make it onto this list. Just beautiful. One of the best things we've had from this brand, one of the best things we've had from Jean-Claude Ellena for a while, from the Frederic Malle brand. This is, of course, Heaven Can Wait. You may remember that when Frederic Malle started his brand, he did a lot of scents with Jean-Claude Ellena. I think he's been friends with Ellena for a while, but then Ellena became in-house perfumer at Hermès, and so they couldn't do any together. And then when Ellena left Hermès, he straight away went back to Frederic Malle, and they made Rose and Leather together, which was an interesting piece of work for Ellena. But this, I think, is vastly superior. Just so good. It's so good. Yes, it's beautiful, says Christine. Rachel says, my husband loves this one. He has great taste. Gavin says, you have a great perfume collection with just those bottles. I know, right? I mean, it's like you could just have these for the rest of your life. And especially number 10 that's coming is beautiful as well. Clove Bomb, says Pradeep. Yeah, but in a good way. It's not just clove, though. Okay, again, another one with a sort of retro quality. And I need to be careful to not keep going down that retro thing. But I don't like retro just for the sake of doing retro. And I think if you are going to do retro, you also need to give things a 21st century sensibility. And the way that perfumes smell convincingly 21st century these days is if they have this kind of the quality that I call being streamlined, where things are less abstract and more legible. So there's definitely clove here, but there's also a strong spicy note, lots and lots of spices. Apparently Jean-Claude Ellena wanted to work with warmer spices. He's very good at working with cooler spices like cardamom, but he wanted to work with warmer spices here. Great iris note, pepperiness. Very soon after I smelt this, I actually happened to meet Frederic Malle at an event, and so I had to ask him. I asked him whether the kind of point of inspiration for this perfume was Carine's old scent, Poivre. He kind of gave me a smile and said, no, it's not. But I am told, I'm reliably informed that there is a very definite scent that was the inspiration point for this. He also told me that it's not Caron's Bellogia. I don't know what it is. If anybody's worked it out, they can tell me. I just have a feeling it must be a Caron because it's got that old world, old school French chic charm about chic charm about it. It's great, and it's one that I kind of think I must never be without a bottle of this one. Jackie says, I love horses, and part of it all is the great smells around the barn. Hay, leather, oak, even molasses in some types of grain. Ah, interesting. That's my heaven. That's interesting. You don't think about hay as being... Frederic takes mostly from Rudnitska, says Pradeep. Ah, okay. Maybe we need to look at Edmund Rudnitska's, although I'm not sure that's true. He's taken a lot from Guerlain as well. Gavin says, for me, this would have been Vogue for your Madonna choices. Oh, I did Portrait for Vogue in the end. Oh, well, it's very retro. I mean, that would have worked. That would have worked. Okay. And finally, oh, who's this? David says, such a warm scent. I bought a 10 ml, but it's 100 ml bottle worthy for me. My favorite of 2023. I think it's a lot of people's favorite. And we need to do the very last one. Last, but by no means least. I was so excited to have discovered this brand. I was so pleased that the brand founder and brand perfumer reached out to me and said, would you like me to send you some samples? And I said, yes, of course, please. You know, I would love to try any samples. And just so delighted to see that there are still brands out there that genuinely kind of champion the spirit of independence and want to give us beautiful work that, okay, you know, is not cheap, but is relatively, for these days, you know, reasonably priced. And I'm very, very pleased to say that we're trying to work out a kind of date for the founder to come on and do an interview. It's going to be within the first quarter of the year, from the brand Puente, founded by Iliam Puente. This is his Eris Doux, or soft iris, and this was one of the best irises I've smelt for ages. And I know that a lot of you like this brand as well, and I know that some of you prefer some of the other scents like Medusa and Vespertine, but that's fine. But I think we can all agree that this brand is one of the good guys as far as perfume brands are concerned. Is a brand that we will need to support, because as long as brands like this are around, and as long as people like Iliam Puente are around, the future of perfumery will be safe. It's, again, another trend, we get into this on the blog, is that even though it's got a kind of a nod to the past, it's not super loud or with a crazy huge sillage. Christine says, I was blown away by Puente and ordered Vespertine. Milad says, that's a shame no designer made it to the list. It depends on what you mean by design, because I don't make a distinction. I mean, Guerlain is a mainstream brand, although that's not one of the mainstream scents. And of course, Frederic Malle and Le Labo are owned by Estee Lauder, and Diptyque is owned by, I forget who, but it's some huge multinational. Puente is one to watch, agrees Rachel. Yes, absolutely. So this is Iris. You know how I said that the Guerlain is interesting because it seems to find Jasmin's smile. It kind of finds its fruity apricot quality. Iris Doux is interesting because it finds the warmer facets of Iris. Iris is quite often presented as something quite austere, almost funereal, which is great. You know, it definitely presents those qualities and possesses those qualities. But with Iris Doux, Puente shows us that actually it can be just as warm and inviting and welcoming as, say, rose or ylang ylang. I mean, it could be because there's the kind of marked white floral note there as well. But it's a kind of also very interestingly straddles the kind of gender line, because it isn't immediately overtly stereotypically feminine. The woodiness kind of can take it into masculine territory as well. And it feels really golden. You know, I'd love to ask him if the color of the scent is natural. I would imagine it is, but it really feels like it is of this color. It feels golden and ambered and rich and beautiful. And I'm very, very happy to be able to put it on my list. So, folks, we have made it. Those are the top 10, my top 10 perfumes for 2023. Do spare a thought for the ones that didn't quite make it. You will find them on the blog post, which will go live very, very soon. Once again, thank you so much for everything. Seriously, thank you for being the best followers and viewers and subscribers and readers and commenters that anybody could ever hope to ask for. I'm really, really, really grateful for everything that you do. And I know this is almost turning into a cliche, but I mean every single word. I am sure that I learn so much more from you than you do for me. Let us try to keep this going for at least another year. All my very, very, very best wishes to you for 2024. May it be a year of peace and good health and laughter and lots of joyous scented discoveries for all of us. I will see you very soon. Until then, thank you for watching. Happy New Year. Take care. Bye now.